Well, again, it didn't record, so take two, guys. This is a video that's going to talk about how to modify the three main weapons in the gun. Weapons in the game. I'm not to talk about shotguns today, but if you like this video and you leave some comments and you want me to do modifications for shotguns and LMGs and what I would recommend, I can do that for you. So for today, I'm going to talk about SMGs, assault rifles, and sniper rifles. So let's get right into it, shall we? Alright, let's talk about the SMG first. So you see my Navy MP5 here has base crit chance. So because it has crit chance put back on it since 1.6, we want to spec into crit damage. In 1.3 and 1.4 they had taken this off, so we were speccing into crit chance on our mods, such as a T-Rant suppressor and so forth. But because this already has 21.5%, the max you can get is 23% crit chance. We're speccing into crit damage on an SMG. Now remember, the SMG's really an up close and personal weapon. My preferred weapon for PvP. I found the assault rifles to be better for PvE, and I'll talk about that in a minute as to why that is and why I run with one of each. Talents obviously play a big role. I have responsive, deadly, and competent on here. And you'll notice my base damage for this SMG on this build is 26,000 per bullet. Please bear in mind when someone says, oh, my gun does this or my gun does that, that your base damage is spec'd off of how much firearms you have. So if you notice, I have almost 9,900 firearms, which is why my SMG damage is so high. But you know, if you're more likely you're running 8,000 or 8,500 or even 7,500 firearms, you're going to be somewhere in the 22,000 per bullet damage. So this is how I would recommend modifying your SMG, whether it's MP5 or an MP7 or a PP19 or what have you. Let's get into it. So on the muzzle and the scope, I like to have what's called the trifecta, and what that is crit chance, headshot damage, and crit damage. Because I'm speccing into crit damage, my primary stat on my scope and my muzzle is going to be crit damage. So you notice I have 19% crit damage, 5.5 headshot damage, and 2.5 crit chance. This could be a 0.5% better for headshot damage and crit damage, but for now, it's pretty good. Get into the scope. Again, my main stat, or my primary, is crit damage. You can have crit chance and headshot damage, again, the trifecta. If you have the 3.4 times C79 scope, you can get 19% crit damage, but I don't like using that scope because I often accidentally zoom in when I'm fighting, and I don't like that, so that's why I choose the red dot. Let's go down to our grip. The only thing that really matters, truly, is having as high a crit damage as you can have on your grip. Stability is nice, but not really necessary. They're already pretty stable. Reload speed is great. Optimal range is okay, but again, if you have a grip and it has high crit damage, don't worry about what the other two stats are, because it's not going to make a world of difference. Magazines, always extended magazines, guys. I am using a rate of fire magazine on this right now. However, most often I will use an extended magazine with crit chance and crit damage. I don't always find that trading off an extra, 45 rounds per minute is beneficial compared to having an extra 3% crit chance. Don't get caught up in the DPS number. So, for example, if I change this off, let's find one here. Here we go. For crit chance and crit damage, yes, my DPS goes down, 9,000 points. But again, it doesn't really matter. All that really matters is my base damage, how much damage I'm doing per bullet, and my stats behind it. Crit damage only works if you have decent crit chance. But because the SMGs already have lots of crit chance on them, I'm not too worried about getting an extra crit chance. If you're going to put an extended magazine with rate of fire, if you'll notice, you want to have the second stat as crit damage and not crit chance. That's my suggestion. And if you look at my character sheet with this gun, I'm doing almost 40% base crit chance and 117% crit damage. You can get this up to 125% crit damage very easily by giving up a little bit of health on either your knee pads or your backpack. I prefer not to give up the health right now with the way the current state of the game is, because I don't like to be as squishy as that will make me. I'd like to be a little bit tougher. That being said, if that's your choice, that's an easy way to get an extra 8% crit damage. All right. So again, to overview, SMGs spec into crit chance on your weapons mods. Alright, let's talk about the LVOA-C, or the lightweight M4, or any other assault rifle. And again, the base damage is based off my firearms, so don't get caught up with that. Now, the reason I said that assault rifles are best for PvE is because of the enemy armor damage. Enemy armor damage doesn't have a huge effect in PvP. I mean, yes, it does have some, but we're already not carrying much armor to begin with. Remember, the cap got lowered down to 33%, really. 35 if you have a buff with a holster. But 33% is the max, so you're stripping people's armor off quickly anyway. But with NPCs, they have boatloads of armor, which is why I always say assault rifles are better. Let's talk about how to mod this. You'll notice there's no base crit chance on this at all. So, I'm speccing into crit chance wherever possible. Crit damage, crit chance, and stability on the muzzle. You could have headshot damage, and it's going to make, if I show you, it'll make my DPS go way up. Here, for example. However, because these things are so unstable already, it is very difficult to focus fire on the head. So that's why I'm using the muzzle brake I'm using. Scope, halo sight, or hollow sight, however you want to say it. Crit chance as the main stat. We need to get some kind of crit chance on this gun because we can have all the crit damage in the world, but if we're not actually critting when we hit them, we're not doing that bonus damage. Again, the trifecta. Magazine. And this goes back to my point about talking about not trading off a little extra RPM for 4% crit damage. If I was to use an extended magazine with rate of fire, on this one, on an assault rifle, I would want the second stat to be crit chance. For example, like this one. Not crit damage. Or at least not in my opinion, because we have 0 crit chance right now. And then the grip. Now, when you see a lot of guys on YouTube doing builds, they're PC players. And PC players are using a mouse and keyboard, so they have no problem with recoil. They can just simply pull their mouse down. They don't have a limit on how far the joystick will go, and they can focus fire. For those of us on the PlayStation and on Xbox, we're limited on how far we can pull this joystick down. It's very difficult to maintain control of these weapons. Now, you can use the talent Steady Hands. That gives you 25% stability for 10 seconds, which makes this thing much more manageable. I did a video before on how to, get 38% stability on these guns, and it makes a huge difference. That being said, when you're in PvP, it's very difficult to keep bouncing off cover to get that Steady Hands procced. So I use a stability grip because I find I already miss a lot of bullets. I need some kind of control. Having the highest DPS in the world doesn't mean anything if all you're hitting is buildings and cars and tires and not hitting players. So I trade off a little bit of damage to have some extra stability. Alright, the last weapon I'm going to talk about really quickly, sniper rifles. You definitely want to have prepared, which is going to give you extra damage from distance because this is a distance weapon, and brutal. This is where you want to focus into not crit chance, not crit damage, but headshot damage. So if you notice, I have a headshot damage scope with crit chance and crit damage on it. Or excuse me, a muzzle. Same thing with my scope. Headshot damage, crit chance, and crit damage. Grip, crit damage would be best. You don't need stability. It's already pretty stable. Reload speed is nice. And then magazine size, I don't use a rate of fire magazine, especially on a semi-automatic I might, but on a bolt action like this, I'm not really worried about it. I'm not worried about doing quick firing as much as I am as much damage as possible when I do shoot, because I want to focus fire into the head. If you're running a Deadeye build, you can 1 or 2 shot players. I know I get 1 shot all the time by using one of these things. So again, mag size, so I've got a few extra rounds, crit chance and crit damage. These things are devastating. I mean, if you look at, guess I should put one on, eh? Now, this obviously is not a Deadeye build, but when I'm zoomed in, the amount of damage I'm doing, 500,000 damage, I'm going to drop people like crazy if I've got, and you see it's quite stable already. It's barely moving around. For NPCs, this is great. Easy to do. Go back to my lightweight M4. Now, lightweight M4, you'll notice it's already, even with stability on it, it still kicks around quite a bit. Hard to hit. Let me just throw steady hands on just to show you how much difference steady hands can make. So now, I'm going to bounce off cover. I don't even have to stay there. See how much easier it is for me to focus fire on this guy. Now without stability, it's really difficult to do. So you have one of two things. Either use steady hands or use a stability grip like I do. The SMG, well, it's not really good at this distance. I mean, it works, but it's really designed to be up close and personal like this and proccing responsive. And I'm doing tons of damage this way. So, SMGs, nice and close. Assault rifles work at more distance. And I'll proc steady hands real quick. And then assault rifles are great for long distance. So guys, I hope that helps answer your questions about what weapon mods you should put on what type of weapon. I know this seems basic to a lot of us who've been playing for a long time, but there are a lot of new players, and I spend a lot of time making builds for people and trying to help them out. And this is one of the most common questions I get asked is, what things do I put on my guns? So I want to make this video really quickly just to kind of answer those questions for you. If you like this video, leave me a like, hit the subscribe button, I'd appreciate it. Leave some comments below, good or bad, whether you agree with me or not. And if you like this and you want to see more, I can do another video based on LMGs, shotguns, and so forth. So until then, agents, have a great day, and I'll see you in the dark zone. Take care, guys.